Shoshone Falls is a waterfall in the western United States, on the Snake River in south-central Idaho, approximately 3 miles 5 kilometers northeast of the city of Twin Falls. Sometimes called the Niagara of the West, Shoshone Falls is 212 feet 65 meters in height, 45 feet 14 meters higher than Niagara Falls, and flows over a rim nearly 1,000 feet 300 meters in width. Formed by the cataclysmic outburst flooding of Lake Bonneville during the Pleistocene Ice Age about 14,000 years ago, Shoshone Falls marks the historical upper limit of fish migration, including salmon, in the Snake River, and was an important fishing and trading place for Native Americans. The falls were documented by Europeans as early as the 1840s. Despite the isolated location, it became a tourist attraction starting in the 1860s. At the beginning of the 20th century, part of the Snake River was diverted for irrigation of the Magic Valley. Now, the flows over the falls can be viewed seasonally based on snowfall, irrigation needs and hydroelectric demands. Irrigation and hydroelectric power stations built on the falls were major contributors to the early economic development of southern Idaho. The city of Twin Falls owns and operates a park overlooking the waterfall. Shoshone Falls is best viewed in the spring, as diversion of the Snake River can significantly diminish water levels in the late summer and fall. The flow over the falls ranges from more than 20,000 cubic feet per second, 570 cubic meters per second during late spring of wet years, to a minimum, scenic flow, dam release of 300 cubic feet per second, 8.5 cubic meters per second in dry years. The Shoshone Falls are named for the Lemhi Shoshone or Agatica salmon eaters, people, who depended on the Snake River's immense salmon runs as their primary food source, though they also supplemented their diet with various roots, nuts and large game such as buffalo. Because the falls are the upstream limit of salmon migration in the Snake River, they served as a central food source and trading center for the native peoples, who fished with willow spears tipped with elk horn. The Bannock people also traveled to Shoshone Falls each summer to gather salmon. The falls themselves were created quite suddenly during the cataclysmic Bonneville flood at the end of the Pleistocene Ice Age, about 14,500–17,000 years ago, when pluvial Lake Bonneville, an immense freshwater lake that covered much of the Great Basin, overflowed through Red Rock Pass into the Snake River. About 1,100 cubic miles, 4,600 cubic kilometers, of water were released, 1,500 times the average annual flow of the Snake River at Twin Falls. The massive flow of water carved the Snake River Canyon in a matter of several weeks, sculpting falls such as Shoshone Falls where the local geology intersected harder underlying rock layers. The immense Snake River aquifer is formed in the region's porous volcanic rock and recharged each year by melting snow in the surrounding mountains. Because the Shoshone Falls Canyon lies lower in elevation than the surrounding terrain, groundwater is forced to the surface via large springs in the canyon walls. Despite the almost total diversion of the river upstream from Milner Dam, these springs can provide up to 3,000 cubic feet per second, 85 meters 3 per second, of water to the falls. Spring flow varies widely depending on the season, although it has increased since the 1950s due to irrigation water on the surrounding plain percolating into the aquifer. Shoshone Falls became a tourist attraction in the mid-19th century, despite its inhospitable and isolated surroundings. Travelers on the Oregon Trail often stopped to visit the falls, which required only a slight detour to the north. Promoters of tourism to the falls cited the lonely grandeur of the surrounding country and the fact that the falls were not overshadowed by a city, perhaps in reference to Niagara Falls, which at this time had become infamous for the rampant commercial development adjacent to it. The first known reference to Shoshone Falls as the Niagara of the West was in an article from an unknown Salt Lake City paper, reprinted in the Philadelphia Bulletin in 1866, in which the falls were described as a world wonder which for savage scenery and power sublime stands unrivaled in America. The falls were painted by Thomas Moran, famous for his depictions of rugged western landscapes such as Yellowstone, in 1900 for the 1901 Pan American Exposition. In 1876, Charles Walgaman, a local homesteader, foresaw the potential of the falls as a tourist destination, fenced large tracts of land surrounding the falls and began construction on a lodge, hoping to obtain title to said land through squatters' rights. In 1883, the Oregon Short Line Railroad was extended to Shoshone, making travel to the falls much easier, and Walgamot sold the land to a syndicate of capitalists including Montana Senator William A. Clark, who intended to replace the hotel with a far grander establishment and to place a recreational steamship on the river. In April of the following year, Walgamot was granted a license to operate a cable ferry across the Snake River upstream of the falls. Not surprisingly, this ferry was one of the most dangerous river crossings in Idaho. In 1904 and 1905, boats broke loose from the cable and were swept over the falls, killing 4 people. Many other near misses and incidents also took place. The hazards of the crossing led to a demand for a road or rail bridge that would span the canyon just below the falls. Although Twin Falls County Commissioners deemed the idea feasible, it was ultimately dropped due to its high cost. In 1919, the Hansen Suspension Bridge was built across a narrower part of the Snake River Canyon, about 6 miles 10 kilometers upstream. As early as 1900, locals called for the creation of a national park at Shoshone Falls, although this proposal was never approved by Congress. In 1919, the Shoshone Falls Memorial Park Association proposed a memorial park at the falls for World War I veterans. The association hired California landscape architect Florence Yock to design a plan for the park. However, these plans never materialized, in part due to the difficulties of obtaining the needed land from its previous owners. Frederick and Martha Adams later bought the land from Senator Clark, and donated it to the city of Twin Falls in 1932. The state of Idaho donated another tract of land in 1933 to add to the park. Today, Shoshone Falls Park encompasses the south bank of the Snake River at the falls. A $5 vehicle fee is posted from March 30th through September 30th. The park includes an overlook, interpretive displays and a trail system along the south rim of the Snake River Canyon. The trails provide access to nearby points of interest including Deerkeys Lake and Evil Knievel's 1974 jump site. About 250,000 to 300,000 vehicles enter the park each year. In 2015, Idaho Power completed the Shoshone Falls expansion project, which involved reconstructing portions of the Shoshone Falls Dam to reduce its aesthetic impact on the area, and to direct low water releases to the most scenic part of the falls, the Bridal Veil Falls, on the north bank of the river.